If you've watched my channel before, you know that I've tested out many variations of Ruby Amethyst, but one of them that I haven't tested is a pure rush and tap down deck, not focusing on Shere Khan Challenger or Peter Pan Shadow for the evasive, just a straight up tap your stuff down, rush it down, and control the board that way. While I don't think that this deck is necessarily top tier competitive, I think that this deck list will really crush aggro. And what you're seeing here is the opponent on Emerald Amethyst, which is a pretty aggro deck, good against a red purple. And going first, being on the play, they have a significant advantage. As you can see here, my opponent curves out perfectly, 1 drop, 2 drop into Pain and Panic to get up to 5 lore by turn 3. So we're a little bit behind, but we do have that queen shift, and these shift targets can really help you claw some advantage back against these aggro decks. In this scenario, my opponent would be very far ahead since Pain has 4 toughness. Thankfully though, by turn 3, I mean we had the fox anyways, but the queen at least allows us to draw a card. Now with this setup, the opponent opts to just continue questing, putting on the aggro pressure, instead of opting to take out my queen with the panic, and they're going to pay severely for that. They think they're safe with that Arthur, but our strategy is we play those small Pinocchios and the Elsas, and I don't even know if I was playing Ratigan in this build, but you can see the advantage we've generated here. At 7 lore, we've essentially stabilized the board. The opponent finally trades up into, or I guess trades down into the queen with their Olaf, and now you can see it's 3 cards to about 7, and what we have set up here is about to be really nasty. On 5 ink with the Pinocchio already on board, we can quest with the Pinocchio, get the lore, drop the fox, bounce back the Pinocchio, replay the Pinocchio to tap down the Arthur, and then rush it down with the fox, instantly eliminating the opponent's pain and panic loop, and then the extra lore generated by the Arthur. Here they're going to attempt to stabilize further by using their own fox to bounce back the panic so that they can set it up with the pain, but with any Madam Mim card, snake or fox, in this case fox is better because it can rush it down, we can bounce back the Pinocchio and just keep recycling it, and just like that you see how much advantage we've generated just decimating this aggro deck. And again, I was trying some new tech and I really wanted to make Scar Vicious Cheater work. As you can see, it's in my hand right now. Unfortunately, the deck is just so efficient, like Ruby Amethyst, that you don't really need Scar. And every time I found myself able to play him or utilize him or just put him on board, there just seemed to be better options. That's how strong the Merlin and Mim packages are. And in the scenarios where Scar would be useful, because the Mim cards bounce stuff back to your hand, and the Merlin cards have advantage when they enter play and leave the field, you're better off just be preparing. And so I'm not BMing or anything here. I mean, clearly I am in the lead, but aggro decks can just kind of pop off once you run out of removal. However, I'm feeling pretty confident here. You're going to see me recycle or make some unorthodox plays by recycling the Pinocchio here. There were definitely more optimal lines to use there, but I just wanted to put the fear in the opponent that, hey, I'm going to be tapping down your stuff. They forget the quest with the Olaf before dropping the Mim, and then they just replay the Olaf. Again, they know I have the Pinocchio to tap down anything at will. But at this point, we're just going to go ahead and establish some more rabbit advantage and ramp up on ink, because I did want to try to play the Scar, but the more and more the game progressed, I was like, there are just, again, better things to play. So here the opponent drops a rabbit, and then I believe they're going to crash their Mim. I think it would have been better for them to crash into the rabbit there, but I'll take the Mim trade. In the end, it doesn't matter because they clearly anticipate that I have a Be Prepared. That's why they didn't play anything the turn that they friends on the other side. But yeah, we're going to Pinocchio tap down the rabbit, force them to draw, and then just keep putting the pressure on them. They know we have the removal. Like, this is why Ruby Amethyst is so strong. No matter what iteration you build, is like they know if I overextend, I'm getting Be Prepared. They probably think right now, well, the opponent has a decent sized board, they're not going to be prepared. Every time the opponent has played an Arthur, we've outed it. The opponent overextends here a little bit, again, putting themselves on 1 card. And at this point, I'm like, well, I've got Scars, I've got Teeth and Ambitions. I might as well just be prepared here. Get the Arthur off board. Don't even let the opponent ramp up even a little bit. We draw into a 2-drop Cusco, so we play that and just pass turn. Now, the Scar doesn't have a tap down card with it to utilize, but the goal here is that during the end game, you can drop your Scar and then have your Elsa ready to go right after the Scar so that you can tap things down and then just obliterate it with the Vicious Cheater there. But we don't have the Elsa, unfortunately, so we're not going to be able to do that just yet. The opponent does establish a Pain and Panic, and a Maleficent, and we're just going to continue to draw infinite cards here. I opt to sync Teeth and Ambitions with the Cusco to get even more card draw because I really want to see that Elsa to get the Scar combo off, but it just isn't happening. The opponent ends up questing with the Panic and then dropping a Yzma, so I might pay for my slow play here. Again, not BMing or anything. I'm actually just trying to test out the deck and see how synergistic it can be. We draw into a Friends, sing it with the Rabbit there, and then now we can just, I guess, close out the game since we never drew into an Elsa, which I must have only been on 2, but maybe I should have been on 3 because clearly I don't think I'm playing Ratigan in this build either. I like to use the Ratigan with the Aladdin, but yeah, clearly it wasn't happening. So we just go ahead and go for a Goat cycle, which on 10 ink you can cycle the Goat 3 times with a Mim Snake. The opponent Yzmas my Goat and draws us into an Elsa finally, but realizing they have no way to clear our board, they just end up scooping. So in this next matchup, we're going against Amber, Ruby, Mufasa. So this is a pretty aggressive deck, and I like this version over the green Amber one just because you have solid, reliable card draw in this version. It does come at the cost of a combo, like you need to see 2 cards at the same time with 6 ink in the Mother Gothel into the Rapunzel. But just the fact that you draw 3 off of that combination, as well as you are able to play Surfer Stitch in this build, whereas in the green Amber one, you're not really able to play Surfer Stitch. I just think that there's more stability in the Ruby version. So this opponent here goes Stitch and then Simba, not in bodyguard mode, but I'm not going to throw both of my characters into that. Stitch, we do have a Teeth and Ambitions in the back pocket in case we want to use it, and it looks like we may use it here on the Cusco. I like this interaction, but I don't think I needed to do it there because the opponent was still 1 turn away from getting a Shift Stitch on board on turn 4. They do end up playing a dock, and I'm like, this is annoying. And so I overextend here to get rid of this dock, which is probably a misplay. But I'm like, I really don't want you to ramp with that dock. So you can see me thinking, and I'm like, do I really want to do this? And I do end up doing it, and this is probably not a good play. But yeah, the opponent not questing there ends up biting them. We do have the Crab, though, as backup, which is good. And we have the Mim Fox for the loop on turn 5. So the opponent is pretty telegraphed here, dropping that Mother Gothel, which indicates to me they have a Rapunzel ready to go. So just as you saw in the previous match, we are going to loop that Pinocchio and out the opponent's Mother Gothel. Instead of losing my Mim Fox to it, I'm just going to crash into it with the Olaf, since the Mother Gothel only takes 1 point of damage to go, and we just trade up from the Olaf into that Gothel. The opponent continues to ink those Maleficent Dragons, which is excellent because it just means less threats for the endgame. And I think they've inked 2 already, and they might ink a 3rd one later on, and they may only play 3. Some builds don't play all 4. Anyways, we're just going to go ahead and keep establishing a decent board here. Unfortunately, we're not seeing anything significant to get ahead. The opponent drops a Lady Tremaine, and this is indicative of their hand is like Rapunzel, Lady Tremaine, and just things that they really don't want to play at this moment, right? Because they've been inking Maleficent Dragons, etc. And so it feels really bad to get value, like get no value essentially off your Lady Tremaine as we get Cusco off the field and draw 1 off of it. So that means our Cusco gave us like so much advantage off the teeth in the first place, and now the Lady Tremaine draw as well. So with the Simba exerted, we're going to opt to drop the Maui and preserve the Fox here. This just gives us the ability for Maui to take out a bigger threat later on, because if the opponent quests with their Tremaine, which you can see they do here, we have the option of taking it out with either one of our rush characters. The opponent does indeed ink the Rapunzel after they realize they have no value, and this is kind of how we were playing this matchup up until this point. Around the Rapunzel, if the opponent tried to challenge something of ours, they wouldn't just be able to leave with damage on it, they would just get KO'd because Maui and Fox would trade heavily into whatever they had. We force them into a suboptimal play once again, forcing out the Surfer Stitch without 2 characters on board, so that's really good. I mean, if the opponent knew they had Surfer Stitch, they probably should have kept the Lady Tremaine untapped, but maybe they were fearing another loop of the Pinocchio, and they were like, let me just quest with this anyways. They're keeping the Surfer Stitch untapped and hoping to get some kind of draw engine off of it. But again, this is why I like this rush deck, is that all of these decks that do stuff like this, that tap down, like in this particular instance, the Rockstar engine, all of our rush characters will trade up into whatever they tap down with the Rockstar Stitch. I mean, it is free advantage for them, right? Because they just play a character, exert it, and draw a card, and then I technically have to use my resources to out what they put on board, but it puts them behind tempo-wise if I already have an established board with rush characters, which as you can see in this instance, I do. So here we're going to drop the crab, make the Maui a 9 challenger, and take out the Surfer Stitch in one go, drop the second Maui, and then out the Rockstar Stitch, and just like that, we are in the driver's seat, but our hand is non-existent. So I'm not BMing or anything, I'm just, again, you're going to see some plays and you're going to be like, Wantum, are you just like kind of messing around? No, the whole point of this is that we're testing stuff out. Here, I don't want to give the opponent any draws, so, because again, we're both kind of in top deck mode. This is the power of the queen coming down at this point in the game. I just end up passing on nothing. Now, in this instance, I could have dropped Snake and bounced back Pinocchio, drop Pinocchio, exert the queen. But then I would have to crash into it with Maui, and I actually value the Maui on board to take out the opposing Maui. But then I just like, oh yeah, the opponent could be dropping Surfer Stitches. And just like that, they draw 2 cards. So yeah, leaving a board presence for the opponent is not great. And it was maybe, I don't want to say telegraphed, but the fact that they played out a Surfer Stitch with only 1 character prior probably is a good indication that they were sitting on 2 Surfer Stitches and they knew they needed to retain that for their draw engine. And it was very smart by this player to kind of hold out and not ink those stitches in order to wait for them to establish a bit of a board presence and then, yeah, drop the second stitch in order to draw cards. So just like that, the opponent is ramping up on the advantage again, getting a free card back with the Hades. And I'm just like, well, am I really going to get value off of this? Be prepared. I'm going to drop the Pan Shadow to give my Maui and Queen the evasive ability. And then we're going to Pinocchio tap down the opposing Queen here, crash into it with the Maui, and then quest with our Queen to keep it, which is safe because of the evasive and just pass turn. So the opponent could quest with their Surfer Stitch, but if they do, we do have the crab, which will assist in taking it out. The opponent finally on turn 6 is able to get the Mother Gothel into Rapunzel combo right away, and you can see now this game is getting away from me. So playing passively there, I get really punished for it. But the nice thing about these kind of decks, like Ruby decks, is that you have Be Prepared. So no matter how wide the opponent goes, you are always kind of with that insurance policy, so to speak, because of the Be Prepared. So I think at this point, my opponent was putting me on not even playing Be Prepared because I'm playing so many like rush characters. They probably think, oh, well, he doesn't need more uninkable, so he's not on Be Prepared. He just wants to rush things down. And right here, I think this is probably a misplay. I should have maybe just crashed everything into the Surfer Stitch and then drawn a ton of cards off the Queen and then just Be Prepared. Because I could have inked and shift 2 for the Queen. That leaves me with 7 ink left to Be Prepared. But I guess maybe this is the better call because the opponent does have 4 cards in hand. So it would be a risk just depending on drawing like maybe 3 or 4 cards here. In this instance, I am able to draw 2, which is decently solid. And then we're just going to quest, I think, and go to 15. And now the opponent is essentially on, you have to answer some of my board because being on Amethyst, I could have Spellbook, I could have Goats, and I have like 4 questing pressure on board, so they absolutely have to deal with something. And it doesn't look like they can deal with the Shadow right now, unless they have a Maleficent. So they just need some other way in order to out my board. So they drop another Surfer and a Maui. So you can see they're kind of, I don't want to say in panic mode, but they're overextending, not thinking about that Be Prepared, and they're down to 3 cards in hand. Their Surfer goes into my Maui to clear it off the board. Again, they can't crash into my Pan Shadow. This is why Pan Shadow is a decent tech option, because not only is it giving Maui and Fox the evasive ability with Rush, it also is just a 2-quester in and of itself. So the opponent ends up cleaning up my board, but funnily enough, leaving my Queen. Not sure why they would give me that extra draw power, but I'm like, sure, I'll take it. And I'm debating right now if I want to crash the Pan Shadow and draw more cards, or just go for the quest. And so I end up just going for the quest here, and then crashing my Queen to draw a card before I do the inevitable Be Prepared. And now I am like super protected. I make it look like I just drew into the Be Prepared there finally. Because if the opponent drops something, I can Elsa it down. If they end up dropping a Tremaine or a Maleficent Dragon, which again, we know they inked at least 2 dragons, I can then just follow up with the Be Prepared if they out my Elsa. And then it gets a little dicey because we don't have characters to play after that, but we're in a decent position with 2 more Be Prepared. So the opponent likely isn't going to put us on having 2 more, and they overextend and, you know, just end up losing. Unfortunately, I forgot about Mufasa because I didn't see one all game. But when I see them lay out the board like this, they have nowhere to out the Elsa, and this just quest for game. So I'm not BMing, again, just trying to see how the deck plays out, and we're going to wrap up this video on a Goat play and bounce, and then quest with Elsa for 22 endgame. If you enjoyed this video, drop a like. Thank you for watching. Quantum is out.